Hey guys, Matt here. This is my review of Aquaman. This movie is directed by James Wan, who previously directed the first Saw film, first two Insidious films, as well as the first two Conjuring films. This movie stars Jason Momoa, Amber Heard, and Patrick Wilson, with Willem Dafoe, Dolph Lundgren, and Nicole Kidman. This movie is about a man named Arthur Curry, played by Jason Momoa, whose father was a lighthouse keeper and whose mother was the Queen of Atlantis. And when he's visited by another Atlantean, Mira, played by Amber Heard, he must choose between staying on Earth, living with the humans, and having nothing to do with the underwater world, or taking his rightful place on the throne of Atlantis. Now, as far as the acting goes, Jason Momoa is good as Arthur Curry. He took on this role as kind of the laid-back guy who knows he has abilities and knows he can be a badass when he wants to, but he doesn't always take things incredibly seriously. He's the kind of guy where it's like, oh, here's a bunch of responsibility and duties, and he's like, okay. But then when it comes down to it, he can step up and be a hero if needed. Amber Heard as Mira, she was okay. I know they needed the character of Mira in this film somehow, and she was alright. I mean, she looked good with red hair, but she just kind of reminded me of Blake Lively in the Green Lantern film as Carol Ferris. Someone who I kind of felt was added to the movie because she's a notable character and people will recognize her, as opposed to she needs to be in this movie because she's so pivotal. That's how I felt about her. Patrick Wilson as Orem, or Ocean Master, he was good. He was good. I was a little worried because Patrick Wilson usually takes on serious roles, but he was fine in this, just like he was in Watchmen. You know, he can be silly. He can, be a little cheesy and over the top as a bad guy or a hero, and so he did a fine job. Willem Dafoe as I'll say like the Kilowog in this movie, like Michael Clark Duncan was in Green Lantern. He was the instructor, the teacher, the mentor to Arthur, and he does a fine job. He always does a fine job. Nicole Kidman as the mother. I've never really cared for Nicole Kidman, but I actually liked her in this role. The other villain in this film, I forget the actor's name, but he played Black Manta. I was really glad to see him in this film, but also they did a nice job of having two villains, but not oversaturating the movie, not pulling a Spider-Man 3 and having too many things going on at once. It was nicely paced. If I had to describe this movie, I would say it's like Raiders of the Lost Ark meets Thor. Now, this movie's highlight, of course, are the visuals. And this movie looked very, very good. The visuals are like Avatar meets Tron. Everything's glowing, lit up, but everything also is CGI, but it doesn't look terrible. It looks good. It looks real. So the story was okay. It wasn't, the most dramatic story, the most engaging story, but the way it was told was fine. It told a simple story. The thing I like most about this movie is that it was a simple, inclusive movie, which means they didn't have to rely on reminding you that this movie takes place in an expanded universe. They didn't rely on other characters, other things, other movies to get you invested. This was a standalone story, and that's what I really liked about this film. The special effects were really good. The music is really good. Even the end credits. The end credits are like a mixture of the models from Game Night mixed with like an Avengers film, where it shows you all the characters and locations that they visited throughout the film, but it takes you on like an engaging journey where it like sweeps past the lighthouse and down to the ocean and to different locations. So it was neat. This movie was a pleasant surprise, and I'm really glad James Wan is able to go from horror movies like Saw to action movies like Death Sentence to more action movies like Fast and Furious 7, now to Aquaman. So he continues to impress me. So because of that, I'm going to give Aquaman an A. Till next time, guys. See ya.